General Ved Malik, former Chief of Army Staff, Captain J.C. Sharma, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Seshadri Chari of the Foreign Affairs.
And who would believe Pakistan?
Well, Dr. Kalia, what I find that it's in this letter which they have written to you, they say we will continue to put up the matter with Pakistan, etc., which I think is ridiculous, because Pakistan has never acknowledged at all any role in what happened to your son. And I'm going to open up the phone lines today because, Dr. Kalia, I've always told you that the whole country is with you. I don't know if the government is with you on this or not, but the whole country is certainly with you. General Malik, in his letter to, in this letter to Captain Kalia's father, it's been made very clear that we cannot approach the International Court of Justice. And there are some technical reasons being given for the same. Do you buy these excuses?
Look, first let me explain to you what the army did or could have done at that time. I suppose Captain Kalia's father also knows about it, and many people would know about it. I had taken up this matter with the Defense Minister as well as with the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaswant Singh. And since the war was already on when we got the bodies back of Captain Kalia and his colleagues, we had also taken it up with the DGMO of Pakistan, because our DGMO was speaking to them frequently. And even at that time, they didn't accept it. I think the main problem here would be, as far as Geneva Convention is concerned, we never declared that as a war. Unfortunate, because our intelligence agencies kept harping on the fact that these are mujahideen, these are jihadis. And it was much later, on my insistence, that the Cabinet Committee of Security agreed that yes, most of them, if not all, they were all Pakistani regular people. And if we had declared it as a war, then it would have been easier for us to go to Geneva Convention on this matter. It was never declared as a war, and it ended. The other thing is, I think the Ministry of External Affairs is scared of Pakistan raising other human rights violations in Kashmir. And the third reason I can make out is what Mr. Anthony has said, that they still want to keep it as a bilateral issue, and they do not want to take
how can it be? How can it be? You see, I'm sorry, General Malik. How can it be a bilateral issue? First of all, today, let the government remember the promise it made to General Kalia. Secondly, it cannot be a bilateral issue simply because in December last year, Rahman Malik, I'd like to get Maroof in on this, then Pakistani Interior Minister said he did not know if Saurabh Kalia died of a bullet or the weather. And our Defence Minister A.K. Antony only has this to say. He says, we are handling it in an appropriate manner. We will pursue it now, and we are pursuing it with Pakistan. But Maroof, what are we going to pursue with Pakistan? Pakistan is mocking Saurabh Kalia. Pakistan is laughing at, the hurt of Dr. Kalia today. It's not even acknowledging any role. So I don't know what is this rubbish that we are being told by the government that we'll pursue the case with Pakistan.
Arnab, there are 2 or 3 dimensions to this whole case. One is what General Malik has brought out. The second is the obsession in India, particularly in South Bloc, to continue to toe the line of the Shimla Agreement. For me, Shimla Agreement is a fig leaf to cover the embarrassment of a major faux pas that Mrs. Gandhi and her advisors imposed on the people of India, giving away 93,000 prisoners of war to Pakistan on false promises by Bhutto, Bharosa kijiye, later we'll sort things out, and Bhutto went and resigned. And therefore we are holding on to Shimla Agreement to say that is the document that defines bilateral issues. If we do that, then why did the Prime Minister of India recently go and raise the matter with the President of the United States and ask him to admonish Pakistan, because if we wanted to keep it bilateral? Secondly, the Shimla Agreement itself in 2 clauses does bring out that the charters of the UN will be respected. Thirdly, let me also bring out that there is an obsession in India on wanting to deal with Pakistan with the Shimla Agreement, but the Shimla Agreement does not talk on how to deal with terrorists. The United States has come up with 2 acts in 1984 called the Comprehensive Anti-Terror Act and the Congress, which has passed a bill on the Comprehensive Crime Control. Both of them allow the US to pursue people and pursue states and punish them, even declaring bounties and hitting out at them, which harm US citizens. We have done nothing to address that issue. We've been stormed by Pakistan, attacked by Pakistan for more than 2 decades. So there is a complete disconnect in South Bloc between how to deal with Pakistan. If Shimla Agreement is your defining document, it has nothing to deal with a terror sponsorer. If that is not your defining document, what have you done to deal with Pakistan? So I think there is a lack of resolve in how to deal with Pakistan. In fact, the Shimla Agreement says that the representatives of both sides will set the tone for future settlement. Why do the heads of government have to go and meet first? Shimla Agreement says that the heads of government will meet after the representatives
and both of us,
the homework.
and Maroof,
we are using Shimla Agreement. We are using Shimla Agreement to hide our bureaucratic inadequacies.
Exactly. That's the point. And we are both signatories to the Geneva Convention. So I'm going to come to you last, Seshadri Chari, because I want to get in Captain J.C. Sharma. I think he's slightly defensive of the government's position on this one. I don't know. But the point is, both India and Pakistan are signatories to the Geneva Convention. Does that not count for anything? And by the way, Mr. Sharma, India has a strong case. It's not just post-mortem reports. In fact, a Pakistani soldier has in July 2013 confessed to killing Saurabh Kalia. So we are sitting on all this evidence, but we are not taking on the Pakistanis. So there must be some other reason which the government is not divulging. What do you think, Mr. Sharma?
No, well, I wouldn't know what the government's reasons are, but one thing is very clear, that the entire Pakistani mindset towards respecting the soldiers of the other army is completely different than that of the Indian army or any army of a respectable country. Having taken part in the 71 war, I can tell you that their method of dealing, their part of their training is jihad is a word right from school textbook to the training. Now, you're dealing with people who have nothing like we start with as gentlemen cadets, and they don't believe in anything like gentlemanly behavior. So once we have categorical proof, we have all seen the video on several channels of this Pakistani Naik describing how they killed Captain Saurabh Kalia. General Musharraf himself has stated that he had crossed the line and spent a night in the Indian side of Kashmir. They are living with lies.
No, but we are letting them, you see. We are letting them,
Our government successively have shown lack of resolve in dealing with the instances of terrorism.
What about us? Why keep blaming the Pakistanis? You know, let's look at us. How does it reflect, say, Shadri Chari, and after this I will open up to phone calls. How does it reflect today on the Indian government when Dr. Kalia, who is live with us from Palampur, Saurabh Kalia's father, he has to appeal to a United Kingdom-based human rights activist to submit evidence to bring the perpetrators to justice? He has to seek the help of somebody sitting in the United Kingdom today. But his government writes to him saying, sorry, we did all we could.
Yes, I agree. It is a very insensitive way of handling a situation as brutal as this. And let me tell you, the Pakistani army is known for its brutalities. In fact, General Tikka Khan in 1971 earned the epithet that he was the master of brutalities in Bangladesh. Pakistan army, a very large section of the Pakistani army has been so radicalized that for them it is not a war, it is a religious war. And in a religious war, they have to do all these things. So this is the training, probably, as Mr. J.C. Sharma said, it is part of their training. So there is no point in hiding behind the fig leaf of bilateral talks, which is you tell me one issue with Pakistan which we have been able to solve bilaterally. Absolutely nothing. Especially when the Pakistani establishment, right from their home minister down to the prime minister, takes up this stand that we have done no brutality at all, while the people who actually did all these, committed all these brutalities, have been actually decorated in the Pakistani army establishment. This is exactly what has happened. So I don't think there is any reason why we should not be invoking the Geneva Conventions. We are signatories to Geneva Convention, so is Pakistan, and there is nothing wrong in raising these issues internationally. We are unnecessarily afraid of certain bureaucratic tangles, and we need not be so. Number one. Number two, I think our inability to impose a punitive, retributive action on all this brutality is what is coming back home to roost. Therefore, there has to be a military solution also to all these things. You see, so we will have to take it in a very comprehensive manner.
No, the question is,
what the government has done now is absolute insensitivity.
No, you see, this is a situation today, and you know, our hearts are with you, Dr. Kalia, because consider this. Dr. Kalia had to approach the Supreme Court of India. General Malik, just coming to you, he had to approach the Supreme Court of India pleading. Here's a martyr's father. He's pleading not for the life of his son. He's pleading for respect and honor to his son. He's pleading that the case of his torture be transferred to the International Court of Justice. The highest court of India gave a notice to the central government in December 2012, giving it 10 weeks to respond over the way forward vis-a-vis Saurabh Kalia. It has taken the government this long to give a categorical response on whether or not this matter can be transferred to the International Court of Justice. In other words, there is no respect today for a martyr's fathers and martyrs' families' pain, suffering that they go through. And that is what hurts us the most today. And one of our viewers is writing this, Dr. Kalia, and I want to read this out. Somebody is writing this. Dr. Kalia, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
You know, one of our viewers has sent me a message. He says it's sad to see Dr. Kalia again and again. But what is he asking? Not for the life of his son, just respect and honor for not only his son, but an Indian martyr too. And I'm getting many messages like this. Can I tell you this, Dr. Kalia? So you must know that your fight, and I tell you this every time, you must know that your fight is not alone. Now we are getting some callers, and maybe some of them would like to speak to, say something to Dr. Kalia as well. Our first caller is from Jammu, and Govardhan is calling from Jammu. Yes, Govardhan?
Yeah, Mr. Arnav.
Yes, sir.
First of all, this politician has made this country, let the people to die, their seats should be safe. And the respect for army is this. In an airport, I have seen with my own eyes, police are going inside the airport in their own cars. And ASI standing on the gate is allowing them the roadies. Even a rank of GOC came to enter the airport. ASI has stopped him and he went with the foot. He even not have saluted him. Yeah. They have made army, I don't know to use the word, I have gone to a deputation also abroad to the defense.
Well,
there I have seen with my own eyes. I don't want to disclose because tomorrow I'll be harassed if you disclose my name, number, everything. They have the profit in defense deals. We are agree with them. We are a good person. They can sell our souls, our body to earn the money.
Well, today, Govardhanji, let's restrict our, I appreciate your sentiment, but just let's restrict our comments to the case of Saurabh Kalia. And our next caller, one more caller is coming in. Mr. Kurian is calling in from Bangalore. Mr. Kurian, good evening.
Hi, Arnab. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I have a few points. First, that even giving adequate proof on that Pakistan on its complicity in all these activities, they don't accept it, one. Secondly, it's clear that any dialogue at any level does not have any effect. We are deluding ourselves that a stable Pak is good for India, but please understand that Pak is a failed state. So what I feel is that we should cut all diplomatic ties, ban trade, no cricket diplomacy.
I think that's your strong point of view. However, the point is, General Malik, whatever we have done is not enough. By the way, thank you very much, Kurian, for calling. The point is, General Malik, some people are also wanting some more detailed questions from you. Captain Kalia's father, Dr. Kalia, says the External Affairs Ministry informed them under the Right to Information Act that the government had conveyed this anguish and anger of the Indian people to the foreign minister during his visit to Delhi in '99. And an aid memoir was also sent to Pakistan. So, tell me, General Malik, is anguish and anger all we can do? All we can do today, when our boy has come back, mutilated, is we convey our anguish and anger and tell Dr. Kalia after 14 years that Dr. Kalia, thank you for waiting for 14 years. We conveyed our anguish 14 years back. I mean, how ironical and sad is that? General Malik, how sad is that?
Arnab, now that you have widened the scope of this whole dialogue, and you have mentioned, we are discussing Captain Kalia's case, but there have been similar cases even of beheading, as you know, subsequently. The fact is that Pakistan is not listening to us because of our policy of appeasement, which was mentioned by Maroof. and all the time we are only reacting to the situation that they create. Unless we show some spine and unless we take some hard measures, Pakistan is not going to listen to us, and nobody in the international community also is going to listen to us. I am quite certain that even if we go to Geneva Convention, it will carry on with some bureaucratic tangles and nothing much will come out. I think what we require today is not a policy of appeasement, and we should give it back to them sometimes. This is exactly what all of us had said, that when Manmohan Singh meets Nawaz Sharif, he should speak hard language. He should give him a notice rather than saying, Sab theek hai, okay. The DGMOs are not going to solve the problem. Let me show you that. We are just refusing, and I can blame both the governments for it, the previous one as well as the present one, for adopting a policy of appeasement with Pakistan. I think it's time that we change our policy.
No, but we are allowing ourselves
management of the LOC and the border.
In this case, we are allowing ourselves to be insulted. No, Maruf. We are allowing ourselves to be insulted. We have clearly failed to take this case up directly with Pakistan. The government is basically saying, Maruf, today that we did what we did 14 years back. Assurances have not worked, and we are talking about
so many other cases also.
No, but we are talking about prisoners of war. We are not talking about the status of Kashmir or plebiscite. Why are we so much on the defensive? Why are we scared? So what if we lose at the International Court of Justice? Why don't we go to town? Why don't we have a press conference outside the United Nations building saying this is what Pakistan does to our soldiers? I mean, if nothing else, expose them in the entire global media. But you should have the will to do that, Maruf. You should have the will to do that.
Ornab, as you know only too well, I've always insisted, name and shame them.
Yeah,
name
exactly.
And shame them. And I maintain even now that the Shimla Agreement, where does the Shimla Agreement say that you will not stand up for the men who are willing to die for you? Under the garb of the Shimla Agreement, you are dishonoring the commitment of the soldier to this country and its sovereign territory. And you are making a mockery of the sacrifice that he makes with his life. And I think our government, instead of giving lip service that we will do everything for the armed forces, must look into the mirror and do soul searching. I say this for a number of successive governments, not just this government. We stand today a nation which is strong but portrayed as weak because we have a weak leadership. And if there is an assumption in South Bloc that the Shimla Agreement, and if we take matters further, will embarrass us because the UN resolutions will be thrown on our faces, for heaven's sake, read the UN resolution of 13th August 1948. It is in India's favor. It does not compromise our interest in any way. And so therefore, if we need to go back to it, let us go back, but let us give the man on the ground his due. We are embarrassing them, their families. We will reach a point where people will be unwilling to die for this country.
We talk about, we talk about our soldiers as being the most selfless citizens of this country who are willing to give up their lives for this country. And what message do they get today that when one of their own, a brave Indian soldier, is killed by the Pakistanis, his body is mutilated and it is sent back, and all that we can do as a country of 1.2 billion people, ladies and gentlemen, with the fourth largest army in the world, all that we can do is send a scrap of paper to a country opposite us which mocks us back 14 years later. We write a letter to the father 14 years later saying we wrote a letter on your behalf 14 years back and we can't do very much more. Effectively, we are saying that today. So I think there is need for re-evaluation. And if somebody sitting in South Bloc thinks, I've got a super technical argument to counter this, then they really don't know what they are talking about. And I have a few callers. Dr. Kalia, by the way, just stay on with us. We have one caller, Mr. Roy is calling, and he's calling from Delhi. Mr. Roy, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Arnab Goswami.
Good evening, sir.
And good evening to all your panelists. I've been intently listening to all the arguments which have been put forward by everyone. First of all, I emphasize and sympathize with Dr. Kalia and all the other people who are suffering like him because their kith and kin suffer the same fate like Captain Kalia. I am aware of it, because I am also from the armed forces. I'll tell you later on as to who I am. But the fact remains, like to say, charity begins at home. Are we honoring our own armed forces first? Before you take up the causes of people who are suffering like this, none of the governments till now has reposed that faith.
But today I'm being very specific in the case of Captain Kalia, because if we move and make it generic, we will not get justice for Dr. Kalia. I have a second caller, but I'm going to take the next caller after I have a question for you, Dr. Kalia. Dr. Kalia, tell me one thing, what keeps you going? You know, I have spoken to you on so many occasions and I have so much respect for just the way you've been fighting on. After 14, 15 years, what is keeping you going and your family going, and what toll does this fight take on you personally?
In fact, I feel that Captain Saurabh Kalia and his 5 soldiers underwent at the hands of Pakistan. Our suffering, our pains cannot exceed that. Anyway, this simple thing keeps us moving.
I understand. Do you still hope that your government one day will wake up and change its position? I mean, you have had to plead in the country's highest court that your government takes up your son's case. Dr. Kalia?
Yes, I'm an optimist. Now I pin my hopes on the Honorable Supreme Court of India, and I do wish and pray that the apex court takes notice of everything, every development, every proof, and pulls up the Indian government, who has no respect, no honor for the armed forces and for the martyrs.
You know, Dr. Kalia, I respect your optimism, but the court said in December 2012, and Mr. Chari, that's why this is significant. The court said in December 2012, it said to Dr. Kalia that we fully share your agony, but what is the role of this court? Can we only direct the government to take up the case of Captain Kalia with the International Court of Justice? The court said it's an important issue. If the centre wants, it can take this up with the International Court of Justice. There is no need for our interference. So when the centre says today that we are not going to the International Court of Justice, unfortunately it seems like a dead end, unless the entire country comes up today in large numbers, which it should, to support Captain Kalia's family and say that we are with you, and let the government go out there, push. Even if we lose, let us make a big deal of it, that something like this happened. But unfortunately, Mr. Chari, we are giving up even before doing that.
Was,
yeah.
When General Arora went to court on December 23rd, 2011, the Gujarat High Court specifically told the central government that they should invoke the provisions of International Court of Justice. Very unfortunately, that was enough for the central government to move. But what the central government did instead was approach the Supreme Court and get a stay on the Gujarat High Court's order. Because of the stay, while giving the stay, the Supreme Court had to say this. But even then, the Supreme Court did not tell the central government not to go to International Court of Justice, which they could have easily done. There is absolutely no reason why the government even now cannot do it. You may take up the issue bilaterally, but at the same time you can approach the International Court of Justice. At least that would not have given a body blow to the morale of the Indian Army. Don't forget the fact that Indian Army is not only the defense minister or the army chief and the navy chief. Indian Army is the soldier who fights and who puts his life in front of the bayonets against the enemy. So Indian army is also the army, the soldier who lays his life down.
No.
Therefore, in order to keep up the morale of the Indian army, at least the government should have not closed the case. Unfortunately,
it can't close.
If you go by what the defense minister has said, he literally closes the case,
we are closing
and
the
he
case.
has washed his hands off.
Yes, and that's what hurts.
Very sad.
That's what hurts, because I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say this directly today. This government, under this government, the CBI lets off Mayawati in the disproportionate assets case. Under this government, the CBI gives a clean chit to Raja Bhaiya, and Raja Bhaiya comes back as a minister, and the government does nothing, either in Lucknow or in Delhi. And the same government today writes to the martyr's father that, look here, Dr. Kalia, we wrote a letter on your behalf 14 years back, and that's pretty much what we are going to do. So I think the time has come to really reevaluate priorities on this one. I give the last word to Captain J.C. Sharma. Captain Sharma, can this be reopened? Can this be reopened?
Let me make it very clear. Firstly, like General Malik, I was one of the signatories, 41 people who issued a statement before the Prime Minister went to meet Nawaz Sharif that the time was not appropriate. I would agree with General Malik that we have followed a soft approach towards Pakistan, which has been taken to be our weakness. We need to be firm, and there are occasions we need to take countermeasures which would deter Pakistan. Nothing else is going to work. Now, reason here, I retired 9 years ago, but I can speculate why it is not being taken, is that every time it is the Pakistanis who want to involve the UN. When we take up the question of LOC violations, they say, why not reactivate the UN military observer group? And we steadfastly say no. So the government is scared of this, that this would once again involve the UN, which we don't want to. But the basic question before us is, are we going to deal with terrorism and the cross-border infiltration
the question is of principle. The question is of principle.
Or we will continue to follow soft policy?
I don't think
they give us 1,000 cuts and we don't give one cut.
I agree with you. Diplomacy is not done on the defensive. You cannot run a country by being on the defensive. You cannot deal with an inimical neighbor by being on the defensive. You cannot fight for justice for a soldier whose body was brought back mutilated in the worst condition by being on the defensive. And if the government believes that in being on the defensive, if the government believes that being on the defensive on Saurabh Kalia is going to work,
there is no dearth of options. When people say we don't have any option, that is the biggest nonsense.
Well, I take one caller.
Arnav, one last word, please.
Yeah.
Arnav, one last word.
Even
let the government do anything they want.
Arnav,
but there has to be a public opinion built on all these things.
Absolutely,
and we should make it clear to this government and also to the Pakistani government, also to Pakistan.
Where are our
that
leaders?
This government in India is not the final authority on these things.
No, but where are our leaders today? You see,
this government can close 100 such cases. I am forced but the people of India will not close this case.
I am forced to ask this today. If all our leaders are so obsessed only with the state elections that they are not bothered about what is happening in this